And now we go back to cinema, and we are going to talk, or I am going to talk about Wish. So, 100 years ago, I think 100 years. Actually, this is the thing. It's Walt Disney Studios who started it. It might actually be 100 years ago that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was made. It
Ooh.
might actually be that, and
Was it? Yeah. It was 38, wasn't it? Snow White.
was it? Okay, well,
I
okay, I think
believe
it's
so.
100 years of Walt Disney
Okay.
Studios. It's 100 years of Walt Disney
The Walt Disney
Studios.
Studios,
Boat
yeah.
Willie,
Um,
was that the first one or something?
Hmm.
Steamboat Willie, Steamboat. I don't know, but anyway, 100 years. This year, Disney are doing a whole big 100 year thing, and this film they've designed to be the 100 year celebration of Disney. So it's set up, and it has a lot of the things that you expect from a Disney story. The thing kicks off, and when it kicks off, you have it has a storybook, and then the storybook flips open, and then you hear somebody's voice reading the story from that's written in the storybook and everything like that. And you hear about this guy who experienced tragedy in his life, and then he goes around the world and he learns a whole bunch of magic, so he becomes the most powerful sorcerer in the world, and he calls himself Magnifico. Goes somewhere and he sets up this kingdom called Rosas. And when he sets up this kingdom called Rosas, a lot of people start coming to this kingdom. They come to this kingdom because they hear he's there, and they want to see what he owns, and they want to be part of what he built. So it starts from him just setting up this small thing to building a whole kingdom, quite frankly. And the way this kingdom works is that everybody, when they turn 18, they give their wish, and it's not just like any wish. It's not just like, oh, I would like a cake for my birthday. It's like the wish, they call it their heart wish, that the driving force, thing they want most in life. They give it to him for safekeeping. And so he takes this wish and he says, "Don't worry, I'll keep up this wish." And then every now and then he grants a wish of somebody in the kingdom. And the push of the story comes when you meet Asha, and she's a young woman who is wants to be the king's apprentice, because the king he chooses an apprentice every year. So like you get a sorcerer choosing an apprentice. Does this sound familiar from Disney's back
Hmm.
catalog?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just figured that out right now.
yeah.
It did not occur to me while I was watching the film that watching the film about someone trying to become a sorcerer's apprentice. It did not occur to me. But there's things like that, and it's the kind of film where I think that there's probably a lot of Easter eggs put in there that relates to it. Some of them are really obvious. That some of them are really like there's like somebody's wish is like wants to never grow old and fly. And there's somebody else whose wish is that they want a perfect nanny to look after their children, that kind of thing. So like there's all these sort of different things that they put in there to it. And Ashley tries to become the king's apprentice, or the sorcerer's apprentice, and she finds out that he takes these wishes from people, but most of them he never actually grants, and he has no intention of ever granting some of these wishes, including her grandfather, who has just turned 100. Yeah, her grandfather who's turned 100, and he's never had his wish granted. And she finds out that he's never going to get his wish granted, because King has decided that that wish is not going to be good for the rest of people, and he's the only one who gets to decide that. So it becomes this whole thing about she's thinking this isn't fair, and she goes up and then she wishes upon a star.
And you wish upon a star.
Yeah, she wishes upon a
There's a
star.
song about that.
Yeah, there's a
Yes.
song about that. Yeah, there's a whole thing about that. The Disney overture that you hear before every Disney film is
Yeah.
when you wish
When you
upon a
wish upon
star.
a
Yeah.
star.
When you wish upon a star. So she wishes upon a star. And then magically this star comes down. It comes down and becomes like her sidekick, and she realizes that, look, there is other magic in this kingdom beside the king. And so she decides it's time to change everything. We have to release all these wishes, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the king is like, wait a second. There's another source of magic. Somebody's done some magic. I don't like this. You're messing this thing up. I need to control everything. I need to grab it. So it becomes this race between Asher trying to free all the wishes and the king trying to keep the status quo and keep everything exactly the way it is. And one of the things that when I go back home after watching the film, I was like, "How's the film?" I was like, "Oh, I actually quite liked it." This film has received a lot of flack for, it's unoriginal or anything like that. And I think part of it is treading this line between being totally unoriginal, because it's Disney and it's supposed to be celebrating everything you've had over the last 100 years of Disney. It's treading that line between we have to be unoriginal because we have to refer everything like, but also pushing it forward. I think it looks amazing. I love the art style in this, because the backgrounds look like watercolors, the foregrounds look like there's this weird mix where it looks like it looks like it's hand drawn, and then they gave it to Chat GPT, who made it a little bit 3D and made it a little bit CGI. And at the beginning, I just think it looks amazing. It looks great. It looks different from a lot of the other Disney things that you've got. And the storyline, I think it is. because Disney recently has gone away from your traditional bad guy, like bad, evil, cackling guy who's sort of like, no, I will take everything. They've gone away from that. But this one, I think they very obviously made him a cackling bad guy.
Uh-huh.
Even though they've given him like a reason to be a cackling bad guy, they very much made him that. So and also, oh yeah, the thing I was gonna say, my wife asked me about it, and I was like, it's 90 minutes long. It's 90 minutes long, and in today's day and age, if there's a film that's 90 minutes, it could be the worst film in the world. It will still get an extra star from me because it's 90 minutes long. So there's all these different things that they do. There's bits where Asha but she's not a princess. She's just someone. She's just a normal person in this kingdom, and you have your usual sidekick. They come up with like a talking goat sidekick who's actually quite funny, called Valentino, and she has these 7 people who help her out. 7 people who help her out, and if you look at this is something that I'd heard about it beforehand.
Number.
Yeah, I know. There's 7 people and each one of them has like a particular character trait. There's one of them that when you meet him, he's asleep. There's one of them when you first meet him in the kitchen, he starts sneezing. There's another. There's one of them that has glasses, wears red, and is the smart one. There's one of them who's always like really happy and everything with that kind of stuff. And I was the only person in the screening that I went to see, so I actually picked up a picture, and there's all these subtle hints where they are dressed, like the colors and the hints and everything like that are exactly the same as the 7 dwarfs. And I thought that was actually a very subtle one, because I know there's people who watched it and haven't realized that's what they're doing. And if somebody hadn't told me, I might not have realized it. But there's even things like some of the characters, the character design of some of people in this film. One of them who is called I remember his name begins with a D, because the dwarf that he's based on begins with a D, and he is quite stupid. But he looks very much, the character design is exactly the same as a character called Fred in the Disney film Big Hero 6. It's down to the ears, everything like that.
Yeah.
I was like, so you can see that they're doing a lot of things, and they're sort of celebrating the fact that they've done a lot of stuff in Disney. It is quite a good storyline. I think that I think it's a very good mix of traditional Disney and also going forward to say, but we have to say something about the world that we live in now, because the whole thing about come stay here. People want to come stay in Rosas because it's a safe place. Magnifico has made it clean and everything like that, but it's like give me a bit of your soul and then you can live here in this utopia. And it just felt very sort of like social media to me. Like, when people say, oh, you get all this stuff on social media, but what do you give up for it? Like, how much of it do you give up? How much of a life have we given up for that? And it felt very much like that. There is and I like this film. I like this film a lot. I don't understand why it's getting a lot of the hate that it's getting. I know you're never going to watch it, Sharon, because it's animated, unless unless a young child drags you along. But I think there are enough things in it that make you think, oh yeah, I remember that about Disney. Yes, Disney has done some great stuff. As much as they are this big, massive capitalist organization that makes me despair sometimes because of the way they do things, there are still things that they have done that make you smile. And I liked this. I liked this a lot. I thought some of the songs were actually quite good. I thought Chris Pine, who voices Magnifico, pretty good. Pretty good singing voice. Asha is voiced by Ariana DeBose, who you would know from winning an Oscar for Steven Spielberg's Sharon
West Side Story.
Yes. She was. She is. And so obviously, she can sing. So it's quite good. I mean, I have one problem I have with it is the typical thing, in musicals, the best kind of musicals, when you have a song, it moves somewhere. It moves somewhere. And
tells a story.
And there is a song in this where people have said it's the best song in the film. And it is a good song. But my problem with it is when they finish singing the song, they are in exactly the same place that they were when they started singing the song. And nothing has moved on. The story hasn't moved anywhere. They're in exactly the same place. That song was pretty much inconsequential, and that annoyed me. But all in all, I would give Wish a 3 out of 5. I think it's good. I think it is. I think Disney have done enough to deserve talking about themselves and making something to sort of like pat themselves on the back. And I think this is it. And I think that's what it does. And I think it does it well. So 3 out of 5 for me for Wish.